Hi, I'm Ernie Leibovit, and this is Trailers from Hell. After making Tom Thumb, The Time Machine, and Atlantis, the Lost Continent for MGM, George Pal proposed a film about the Grimm brothers based on a script by David Harmon, William Roberts, and Charles Beaumont. Unfortunately, the studio turned it down. About this time, MGM made a deal with the Cinerama Corporation to make films in the widescreen process to lure people back into the theaters with the advent of television. Nicholas Rossini was having a meeting with MGM studio head Saul Siegel. Rossini just happened to notice that Pal's Brothers Grimm script was still on Siegel's desk. Siegel asked Rossini, "What do you think about the Grimm fairy tales?" Rossini loved the fairy tales and thought, what could be more perfect than a film that retold these beloved stories? Mrs. Powell told me that Saul Siegel phoned George at home and said, "How about doing the Brothers Grimm in Cinerama?" This was already after they had already turned it down. George couldn't believe it. Mrs. Powell said he practically fainted. So in 1961, production began on what became Powell's most expensive and ambitious project. It was shot in Bavaria, Germany, and the Rhine Valley at Rothenburg auf der Tauber, the home of the Grimm brothers. Here is the trailer. Cinerama was used mostly for travelogues, but never a story film. It was daunting, as no director wanted to touch it. It was turned down by George Stevens, William Wyler, and Fred Zinnemann. Saul Siegel said to Pal, "You're kind of a tricky fellow. Can you see a story in Cinerama?" Pal said, "Give me a week to shoot a test, and I'll let you know." Pal played the action separately in each of the three panels and away from the join lines. It worked. Pal did what no one else could figure out. George originally wanted Alec Guinness and Peter Sellers to play the Grimm brothers, but the studio insisted on Lawrence Harvey and Carl Bohm. Pal directed the three fairy tale sequences, and veteran Henry Levin was hired to direct the real-life story of the Grimm brothers. The film also starred Barbara Eden, Russ Tamblyn, Claire Bloom, Yvette Mimeo, Buddy Hackett, Beulah Bondi, Terry Thomas, Walter Slezak, and Jim Backus. Hua Chang designed and directed the Elves sequence using Pal's original replacement Puppetoon series invention. Don Saleen and David Pal animated the Elves. Hua also created the Jeweled Dragon, which Jim Danforth animated almost like a puppy dog. Gene Warren Sr., Tim Barr, Robert Hogue, and Hua of Projects Unlimited did the special effects. Lee Harleen composed the music, who scored Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Pinocchio, winning an Oscar for When You Wish Upon a Star. Despite mixed to positive reviews, The Brothers Grimm was still one of the higher-grossing films of 1962, but was surpassed months later by the next Cinerama epic, How the West Was Won. As Russ Tamblyn explained, Grimm was a great film for George. It gave him a chance to spread out and return to the Puppetoons and fairy tales he loved. Barbara Eden said George spent a great deal of time with detail, the costumes, the sets. She said he had a wonderful sense of humor where even the dark side of his characters had a positive message. For me, The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm is a beautiful film and will always remain a strong voice for George's imagination.